Hello folks, the Celtic Nerd here bringing another nerdy video. Sorry if I end up touching my eyes a fair bit. I just got done washing my face and soap with scalding hot water, at the eyes. And I did use a towel, but my left eye, which has issues, is still quite bothering me. As it's, suffered injuries in the past. But anyway, so this is a new segment I'm hoping to continue um, further down the line. It's not going to be on any special day. Most likely, it will, however, will fall on Fridays because of it will be fresh in my memory. Still, I have taken to DMing Adventures League at my local hobby shop. Which, funny enough, will no longer be my local hobby shop because I am unfortunately moving. Also, I'll be in a new space, but I'm still going to go down there every Thursday to DM. Now, as by the title of this video, this is titled The Chaotic Pair. And I will be talking about an adventure that I ran yesterday. It was my first time ever. Well, okay, I actually have DM'd Adventures League content in the past, but that was more specialized Halloween content because I was a player in AL and I wanted to get, some of the special rewards for getting, what was it, candy corns and all that. But my AL did not meet up enough for me to actually achieve that. So, but as a DM, you still get rewards. So I DM'd for my friends that content, and I got the candy corn, which, because of how the AL was run at the other hobby shop, I eventually left, even after getting all that content, because I didn't agree with the way they were running it. Not I wasn't disagreeing. Okay, there were some things about AL that I did not like. For example, I was not a fan of the new system. Now again, things might be different, and the reason why I'm saying all this is for context, because wow, my eyes are really irritated now after washing my face, and I'm like, I don't know why. Maybe it's the soap, but oh god. So bear with me, folks. Um, I'm want to give you guys context before I go into the story that my previous knowledge of AL, then year goes by, and now I'm a DM. I was not given the full information on how this shop is running things, except for the fact that they have two dedicated kids tables, and then they have adult tables, and then there's also the fact that I know I like this system. They do play every week, but they run the same adventure twice, so that way everyone gets a chance to actually play through it. And then obviously the code of honor is, no power gaming, and also it's the all the DMs together that decide when players level up. So pretty handy. So they've also explained that they are a little loose with the rules. For example, as this title suggests, it does have something to do with the chaotic alignment. In AL, you cannot be neutral evil and you cannot be chaotic evil. You can be an evil, it has to be lawful evil, but you can only be even lawful evil if you're a member of the Zentarum or the Lord's Alliance. So, the reason why I left though was also I didn't like the treasure points because I was playing a wizard at the time, and if I find a spell scroll in the quest, I don't get to keep it. It goes away, and it just gets added to my purchasable items inventory. And then I had to spend treasure points to get it. But as a wizard, I don't want spell scrolls. I want to add the scrolls to my spell list. So I had to then spend extra treasure points to get gold, because gold wasn't even given away. You have to, both use treasure points for both items and gold. So playing a wizard became really bloody expensive. and I just got now a cut on my finger. I'm getting some of these random little nicks on my finger sometimes. I don't know why. It could be because of the how hot I like to do the dishes with, because I just did the dishes, so maybe that's why I'm getting these cuts. It's the heat and whatnot. Also the sharp stuff. But anyway, so that's my context in terms of AL. Then I show up. I'm apparently because of some other situations, I had to DM the kids. Let's see, there was 1, 2, 3 in front of me. Then there's two. Oh, so it was 5 kids. I'm just going to refer to them as their class. I do not want to embarrass anyone by revealing names. And to be honest with you, I don't remember names. I don't even remember their character names. So I'm for always when I do my D&D stories, as you folks know, I do try and keep to classes or character names, so that way people can be anonymous. You can't look them up on Facebook, Discord, or WhatsApp or anything like that. Or Twitter. You won't be able to find them. Unless you know them already and you can tell who they are. So we have Rogue, Paladin, Druid, Ranger, and Fighter. Now, I'm assuming these kids are new to D&D, because some of their choices I was like quite interesting. Some of them are very stereotypical, but I'm like, I'm like, okay, I'll just roll it. I had now some of the other things that they've. Here's some of the big clues I should have gone into. That I knew some things might get a little out of hand. We get to the rogue. I like to know a little about my party. We have the rogue, who is playing a Dampfer who is over 2,000 years old. He was a tiefling before becoming a Dampfer. I don't know if he was born or whatever. Don't know his backstory. He was an agent of the He's an agent of the Zentarum, so he had that faction going for him. His alignment is chaotic evil. The Dampfer bit, I'm a little okay, because I did hear that they did change some of the rules for AL that did make it so that you didn't have to pick just one book anymore. You instead get all of them, because I remember when I was playing AL, I always had to pick the Xanathar's Guide to be my +1 book, because as a wizard I really need those extra spells. But apparently they got rid of that, which is understandable considering that wizards have now released so many books, some of which I do not agree with, which are simply reprints of races and whatnot. But anyway, so next we have the Paladin. I believe he was neutral. He was a human. No, he wasn't. We had a dragon. We did have a human and a dragon. God, I can't remember all the races. We had the Paladin. I do not recall his alignment. Then we had the Druid. Now the Druid and the Rogue know each. No, the Druid, the Paladin, and the Rogue. Yeah, Druid, Paladin, Rogue all knew each other in real life. They came together and sat at the table together. I don't know about the Paladin's alignment, as I said, but the Druid is also chaotic evil. And again, I don't know if that rule has changed in AL. So again, as I said, that to me, I'm just like, oh boy, because the thing is, since they're young, I'm assuming. Again, I might be wrong. I have no confirmation on whether or not they're new to D&D. But in my mind, I'm like, if these guys are new to D&D, picking chaotic evil might cause problems. It's like I don't ban alignments in my games. I run modules and I run homebrew settings. I do not ban alignments, but if a player wants to be a specific alignment, I do talk to them about it and be like, how do you interpret this alignment? Just to get a clarification on like, are you going to use this alignment as an excuse to be potentially a dick or an asshole? I've had talks with, for example, someone who was in my game who was playing a lawful good paladin, and he was basically being lawful stupid, I had to talk to him, and I was like, "Look, you need to. Your play. It's a group game. If your character is so steadfast in the word of the law, it's gonna cause issues. So having not one but two chaotic evil characters, and one of them is a rogue as well, which also brings into some other stereotypes. So I'm like, okay, well then we have the ranger, who, strangely enough, if I'm being honest, the ranger and the fighter who are sitting next to me at the table, I have a suspicion that this is not their first rodeo. I feel like either they've watched a lot of D&D content or they've played D&D content. They have some sense of, you know, what's going on. They seem to have like they had things together. Like, you know, they knew what was going on. Then we had as I said, we had the Dragonborn Fighter, who was very religious. But back to the ranger, because it's very interesting. The ranger actually is sorry. The ranger has something to involve in his backstory. His family was betrayed by some druids, so now he hates druids and animals. Now, he did not take this animosity towards the druid, which I was like, okay, nice. So your character, like, you're like, even though it's within his character's personality to be potentially antagonistic to the druid, he wasn't. So fair play to that ranger. And there was even one moment when I was doing a whisper chat, because we lost so much time. I did allow the fighter to read some bullet points of information that his character was being given. So I was like, okay, yeah, but he saw a title. He saw a title called Ambush. So he's like, but he did not act on it. He actually walked into the ambush. He did not metagame, which I was like, wow, fair play. So like the ranger and the fighter have given me the impression that they understand, you know, some unwritten rules of D&D, or at least they have a bit more. They do not stumble into stereotypes. The lawful good fighter didn't. Um, so let's get into the story. We're doing an AL adventure. Now, AL adventures are designed to pretty much be done potentially in one session. If you can't do them in one session, you're probably close to finishing in one session, which often is the case. You know, you can just carry over to next week, because I know some ALs do allow, you know, you to finish off an adventure, but for most part, they finish within one session. Like I've had, I was part of a group that finished this adventure very quickly. Like, I played this adventure myself, and we finished part one and part two quite quickly. It was only at the end of part two did we actually start slowing down a little bit. But like we went through part one and most of part two quite quickly. They were being hired by an organization called Blackfist. They're basically they're a mercenary group that acts as guards in the city of Flan. We're doing season one, Tyranny of Dragons. I have no idea if this is the second adventure or the third adventure in that storyline. I'm hoping to collect as many of these AL adventures as I can, because they have unique creatures and items that I can introduce to my normal games. But yeah, so they're hired to investigate a string of thefts. It was brought to the Blackfist this particular Blackfist member's attention by the master scribe of a library. It's apparently a big building. It's one of the biggest buildings in the city. So she decided, because she does not have enough support within the Blackfist organization, this woman decides to reach out to adventurers to get extra assistance, because she can't properly investigate. She just doesn't get enough support. So out of her own personal pocket, she offers the group 50 gold. They're level 2, 50 gold for the group. Maybe a bit low, but again, they're starting out. So the party goes, talks to Miss Brandywine, the master scribe. They talk to her, I'm having fun with the character a little bit because she's supposed to be very nervous and possibly has a stutter. So I'm trying to portray that. So I'm having fun, role playing. Some of the kids are having fun. They're laughing as I'm also going like doing twitches and all that. Taking inspiration from Professor Quirrell from Harry Potter. So things are going well. Uh, red flag coming up. The rogue asks me, "What is there anything visibly valuable in the room?" The three of the players look at him and are like, "No, don't." And like the it's hard to tell what like they're all books. They're like there's none of them are like overtly shiny or anything like that. So he looks disappointed, and they get the information from her. Mind you, unfortunately, the druid and the rogue were being a little insulting to her or rude. So she did not give them a good bit of information. She gave them a fair amount. So she gave them like the majority of the information that they needed. Particularly the three people who came to her reporting that their place had been stolen, and each place only lost a book. So that which is why it's so suspicious to her. So they go to the first person, a shopkeep, who believes that the party was sent by the owner, the person who runs the library. The Brandywine does not run the library, even though she's called the Master Scribe. The Master, Lord Sage, like that's his title, Lord Sage, is the one in charge of the library. She tells them like, "Oh, you must be from this place." She just talks about like what happened. The display case that she kept the book in is like very valuable looking. And immediately the rogue asks me, "Can I steal the display case?" I'm like, "No, it is too big for you to steal without getting caught." He looks once again very disappointed, and him and the druid is able to notice that there's some like the runes that she etched into the display case. There's some very obvious well, sorry, there's upon closer inspection, one of the runes was actually damaged, and it disabled the protective magic that kept that would have kept the people away from it. So someone knew what they were doing. Like this was a professional job. First clue of like someone very serious, like someone not an ordinary thief is at work here. But yeah, so the druid becomes very insulting. He's like, "These runes are shit," and all that. Like, I'm paraphrasing by the way. So like, but essentially he's saying they're shit. The fighter tries to keep the woman, wanting to give them information. Um, but she's like, I'm like, okay, you two with the highest passive insights, you get a feeling that right now she's sort of closed off. She feels very insulted, and you're probably not going to get any more information out of her today, or at the moment. Maybe it'd be best for you guys to leave and let her cool down. So I'm hinting at like I'm trying see because they're kids. I'm not trying to be too strict with them. So I'm like, okay, here's some small level of consequences. Here's like a warning that like guys, you need to adjust your approach when talking to these people. I'm trying to ease them into that situation. Um, so they leave. Then we get to the next victim, a retired dwarven adventurer. They talk to the adventurer. The fighter has a duel with his prize student, his daughter, and he wins. So now some of the players, none of the players actually looked bored. Well, except for the rogue and the druid. They actually looked bored during this modified combat encounter because it's not proper combat. There's no spells, no armor. and it's whoever scores the first 3 hits finishes and that's it. The fight is over. You know, so it's supposed to be very quick, but they there was a couple of misses. But I'm trying to keep entertainment. I'm like, okay, you swing actually block. I'm trying to describe the fight as epically as I can to try and keep people entertained. Which for 3 of them, it seems like that was the case, with the exception, as I said, the exception of the rogue and druid. Which part of me was like, okay, that could have been another red flag. So after impressing the dwarf, he's all ecstatic. He's like, "Oh yeah, come on in. I'll tell you all the information I have." He even gives them a book to use as a reference because he's like, "Hey, the book that was stolen looks exactly like this one. So this book is useless to me. Here you go. Use it to if you see a book that looks exactly like it, it's most likely my book. It has." And he explains that there's no monetary value in the book. It's mostly personal and emotional value. It's a memoir of a hero, that once saved the city, and it's his personal hero as well. So even though it may not have any monetary value, it's valuable to him because he admires this person and he likes the idea of being able to read the adventures of this person. But once again, the rogue asks me, "Is there anything valuable that I can steal?" I'm like, "No, this guy lives a pretty modest life. Some of the books may look valuable, but not by much. Um, but luckily enough, the rest of the party are able to get him out of there before he tries to steal anything. Um, so he so he gets more information. Um, about he explains that the only people who would have really known that he had that book was in his possession would have been the people at the library. We get to the final person. Now I would say this bit should have taken about maybe 30 minutes or an hour at most, depending on how much deep diving you do in the role playing, you know. But I kept getting stopped to be asked about valuables, and some of the players kept going at it, because some of the other players were being a little bloodthirsty or very rude. So that slowed things down. So in a sense, it was being bogged down by role playing. But here is when it got the biggest amount of bogged down throughout the entire session. This bogged us down to essentially a halt. We're at this noble. It's a stereotypical noble. He lost his book as well. He's acting all superior. He's talking down. He's fairly sarcastic. He does not like adventurers because adventurers, in his mind, are just mercenaries. They're simple. He would rather city guard take care of this, or better yet, he would rather just move on about it. But the rogue, now this noble is in charge of his family for 2 centuries have chronicled and kept a detailed history of other noble families and their lineages. And he gives them information. He's like, I kept it locked and in my drawer, which also that was warded by powerful magics, which the rogue investigates. Also, that's another thing. No, in all fairness, here's something I did like about the rogue. He did actively try and roll investigation. He was looking for clues, which did annoy one of the other players. But hey, it's at least he's not trying to steal anything. So he investigates, and he's like, "Why do you keep doing that?" And I'm like, "He actually finds something." I'm trying to try. Well, to be honest with you, he rolled the incorrect stat thing. He was asking to investigate, whereas according to the Adventures Late thing, it's supposed to be a perception to investigate the desk. And I'm like, perception to investigate a desk? No, I'm going to go with investigation. Also, I knew that the rogue had shit perception, so I was like, I'm gonna throw him a stick. He's been wanting to steal things, and I didn't want to discourage the whole investigating thing because it's again he's not trying to constantly steal everything. So I was trying to reward, that, I was trying to be, nice. So he finds that the a very a laughable, like as described in the document, a laughable simple alarm that just swings a bell. And once again, at that moment, the druid and the rogue start insulting him. And I was like, oh no! The rogue asked me what's valuable in the room. And I had to explain this noble, because it's described on his sheet, wears essentially big gaudy rings on basically each of his fingers, and he has also the gaudy bracelets, and there's also a big gaudy heraldry slash family tree thing hanging on the wall. So the rogue's like, his eyes just light up. And he's like, I want to shake his hands. And I'm like, well, you just insulted him. He's not going to shake your hand. So he's like, I apologize, and I'm like, okay, roll a persuasion. And he rolls. He's like, okay, he accepts your apology, but he still doesn't like you. Again, if, to be honest with you, if the rogue was not overly rude, I would have actually totally allowed him to, shake hands and try and subtly steal a ring. I was like, that would have been really okay. That would be a rogue being a rogue, And but the problem was he had to insult the noble. I was like, no, you just ruined your chance. Now the druid decides to walk outside at this point, and him and the rogue started whispering to each other. After he stayed, he goes outside, and I'm like, so they're planning. In my mind, I'm like, they're planning something. Like, what the hell? Then the druid, as the rest of the party are trying to reconcile with the noble, because the noble is like you have two of these companions insulting me, like what the hell? The druid then says, I turn into a bear and I storm in and kill the noble. Not that I just attack the noble, I kill the noble. I'm like, I said I advise against that. Now the other players are freaking out. They're like, what the hell? No. And again, I'm like, I heavily advise against that. And he says, I want to do it. I'm like, fine. From the you do that, but before you after you barge in, from the rest of the players' perspectives. Now I did warn this table because I did this warning after I saw the two chaotic evil alignments, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this warning early so that way we may avoid a potential situation, because I've seen, because again, like, chaotic evil has been, I've seen chaotic evil being used in the past to be an excuse to be an asshole to the rest of the party, or to just cause mischief for the rest of the party, or cause problems for the rest of the party. I've seen that happen, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try and nip this in the butt right now, before we get any further. But to get this druid kept on pushing, and he was very insistent that he attacks the noble. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna actually bend my rule a little bit, because once he's turned back into human form, the party will realize, oh, it's him, and they won't actually kill him. I'm like, okay, this seems like a good sort of loophole, and it will also possibly teach this player to not act against the party's interests. So I was just like, or maybe act to not act in a selfish way. So I was like, okay, I'll try this way. Again, they're new, trying to ease them into these types of lessons. They're teach them gently there are consequences. Also, this is the same bloody situation that I had with my nephew as well. He was 9. I'll get into that story another day. But my brother, my brother was sitting nearby, he's playing the Switch without his headphones on, and he hears what's going on, and he looks up at me. He's like, and there's a recognition in his eyes, and I'm like, and I look over, and I'm like, I don't know if my brother saw me or if the other guy saw me, give him like a nod. But see, the thing is, my niece and my brother have a term for doing such a thing. They call it doing a Tristan, which is the name of my nephew. But we'll get into it. So the rest of the party rolls initiative. I'm like, because from your guys' perspective, you just see a bear barging through the door, going on a rampage. So combat ensues. The rogue goes first. The rogue metagames. He's like, apparently they plan when they whispered, they planned this out of character. You know, so I'm like, oh boy, okay. He's like, I'm gonna try and steal the Helladry, and I'm like, it's pretty big. You're gonna have to roll a stealth check. Sorry, sleight of hand at disadvantage because you're not behind anything. Like there is an owlbear going on, but you're still within line of sight of like a bunch of other people. So he's like, okay, roll, sleight of hand. He at most he got an 8. I'm like, everyone sees you. Next is the Dragonborn Fighter, who again at this point I imagine the player and possibly the character is fed up with the rogue shenanigans. So he specifies, I'm doing this with non-lethal damage, and he starts swinging with the blunt side of his longsword at the rogue. He deals a lot of damage to the rogue. He even burned an action surge to just like whack, whack, bad rogue, bad rogue. Which I'm not gonna lie, I found amusing. Next, then we're at initiative count 20, and because of what's going on, the noble shouts, "Help, guards!" Because he sees he's being robbed, and he's also seeing that he's being, potentially attacked by a random bear. So, and I'm like, because they're in a sea, and because people would have seen a bear, suddenly, a person transform into a bear and then suddenly force their way through a door. Guards are already on their way, so for the people who have the highest perceptions, which includes the druid, I described that despite the cries only now happening, you already hear the sounds of footsteps. So I'm like, I was hoping for the druid to realize, okay, I'm not going to get away with this. I'm going to stop what I'm doing, and I thought the rogue would do the same thing. No, the druid continues. The others, the other players who are before the druid, go in on the attack. One try the druid. Sorry, this is when the ranger explains that he hates animals, and there are his preferred targets. So he goes with his rapier and he does like ensnaring strike and all that, which the bear resists. The paladin even does a searing smite on the bear, to cause a continuous damage. They deal a lot of damage, not enough to knock him out of bear form, because he is Circle of the Moon. So hence why he's actually able to take the bear, which is pretty tanky. It's one of your more tanky options starting now. So, those things happen. It gets down to the bear's turn. He takes some damage from the searing strike, and the searing strike is the paladin spell. So he attempts to run past the other two and go straight for the noble. Attacks of opportunity happen. Bear gone. So he reveals himself, and he's still attacked the noble. He was knocked out of bear form. He is in human form. He's like, I attacked the noble with my scimitar. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my god. I'm sitting there. I'm sitting there just like trying to just like, oh my god, roll with it. I knew like I'm gonna have to talk to some of the other DMs about this because, wow. He missed, thank God. He rolled pretty badly. So we get back to the top of the turn order. The Danfer Rogue is like crap. I want to try and hide behind the the helladry, and I'm like, there's not enough space to hide behind that. And he's like, oh, okay, I run up the wall. So he starts running up the wall. Fighter gets attack of opportunity, rolls, knocks the rogue out. So I described the rogue going like you bolt it for up the wall, but then smack, boom, 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 you're unconscious. And I roll the d4 plus one to determine hours. We then get back to the other people's turns. The fighter is now immediately tying up the rogue. That's how he spends his action. We get to the other people. They're now trying to just grab hold of the druid successfully, and then the others are they're just trying to knock him out at this point. The other one's trying to knock him out. Guards arrive on initiative count 20. I discreetly rolled how many showed up. I'm like, okay, that many showed up. And they see the situation. They see that the person who's being aggressive is, restrained. So instead of going for the killing blow, I was like, okay, I can very reasonably have these guards just simply knock them out, and that will be a lesson. Because I don't want to just kill their characters, So the guards, are just like bam, bam, bam with their blunt end of their weapons until eventually the druid goes unconscious. I then get up and I walk to the front of the store where one of the where I knew one of the DMs who runs AL, who he doesn't run AL, he DMs for AL, and I'm just like, I needed advice. This is what happened. I tell him basically the story of what they did, the whole encounter, and he looks at me. He's like, him and another person were at the cash register. The other person he's employee, but he clearly plays hit the guy wearing this shirt. I don't know who he is. He's new to me. He's new in the shop. His eyes go wide as I tell the story, and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, 100, take 100 gold from them, and give them a warning that if they do such a thing again, the guards will kill them. I'm like, okay, thanks. So I go back around. I'm like, okay, you were both alive. You wake up 5 hours later, and you have to pay a 100 gold fine, and you're given a stark warning to not do this again. The rogue immediately he's like, I'm bankrupt, and he starts rubbing it out. Because he has no more gold now. He only had 100 gold. The druid, which I don't know how he's gotten so much money, he has 1,500 gold. So, I have honestly no idea. Again, this is a kids' table. They're being very loose with the rules for the kids' table. So, maybe they're because one of the rules when I was in AL. Now the rules did change about 3 times while I played AL, but from the very beginning when I joined AL, I was told you cannot keep basically anything from your adventure, with the exception of the magical items that you are given as rewards, and even then, so if you pick up any weapons or anything like that, they are worthless. You cannot sell them even during the session. You any gold you pick up, you can keep gold that you find well enough, but the stuff that we were doing, I don't know how this druid has the amount of gold of 1,500 at level 2, but even then, apparently some of them were supposed to have qualified to reach level 3, but again, that still seems a little much, but okay. He's complaining. He's like, I'm like, what? All the other players are getting real, the other 2 players looked like they were getting ready first. They're like, oh my god, I'm hearing oh my god coming from them, and they're telling him just rub it out, it's only 100 gold. He then asks me, can I instead turn into a bear and attempt to break out? Now, after just talking, now this is what me and my brother refers to pulling Tristan. I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, I just talked to the DM, like to the other DM, sorry, to another DM, about, an alternative to killing off their characters, you know? And here we go again. Like, I'm like, what? I'm not going to kill his character. I've already said I'm not going to kill his character. But I say to him instead, you're an anti-magic field. You cannot transform into a bear. And he's like, okay, well, but when they open the cell, I'm like, can I, try and make a break for it? I'm like, I would advise heavily against that. They have all your gear, your coin purse. They have everything that's on your inventory, that's on your sheet. Like you're in common clothes essentially. Again, trying to just reiterate to this guy, to this person, you know, mm. And then he's like, "Can I try and rob my gold back?" I'm like, I strongly advise against that. So I am giving warning after warning after warning, like to this, like, okay, the rogue, the rogue, yeah, he was doing very stereotypical rogue stuff, and again, if I would imagine like he's looking at his alignment plus the rogue, like those two things combined in his mind, if he is new to D&D, is equaling, try and rob everything that's not nailed down and be rude. So okay, I'm like, fair enough. But like here we have like, but the rogue moves on. He cuts. He's at the cutting his losses. From that point on, he was more or less okay. But the druid, oh my god, that druid. Um, so they're leaving and I describe to them as you're walking through the streets. Um, you get approached by a random elf. He says some things. He leads you down an alleyway. It turns out it was an ambush, and the party gets to fight together. Teaming up. Um, but yeah, they managed to the the mercenaries. It turns out one of the people was deadly afraid of something, not the party, but he was deadly afraid of something, and he kept on fighting, even though apparently these other people throw down their weapons and raise their hands. They're like, we're not getting paid enough for this, so apparently they're just simply mercenaries, and they surrendered after one of their members just got killed and the fight is not going their way. you know um the the fighter who was fighting two of them, along with the druid, he ties up he bounds one of the he bounds one of the mercenaries. The druid then just kills him, which the party is going apeshit over. They're like, now we only have two of them to interrogate. Which the person who's deadly afraid, he's being grappled and his mace was ripped from his hands. I describe him taking out a dart and stabbing himself in the throat. And the rest of the party are like, what? Like clearly he did not want to talk. But the female mercenary she just keeps her hands up. She's like, she refuses to, she doesn't talk to the rogue or the druid, especially the druid, because the druid, she just saw the druid killing someone unarmed. But she talks to the fire because the fire is like, I won't let I'll make sure nothing happens to you. But the druid did say he wanted to go up and kill her. And the rest of the party are like, no. They're the rest of the party put their foot down, and she tells them, I was hired by a person in a half mask. Couldn't tell you who he was, but he had blue ink on his hands, which ties into some other clues that the party got, and so they were on their way to investigate that. and surviving that ambush marked the end of essentially part one of this adventure, which again, in my opinion, like I don't know how quickly I got it done, but like we actually ended the adventure fairly early. Um, we ended it ahead of time, but like we flew through part one and half of part a good bit of part two. I don't know if it was half or just the end. That's we started struggling at, but we this whole investigation bit we managed to get through pretty quickly. Um, and but yeah, but the thing is though, the AL group that I was with were very strict. You know, they followed all the rules, as written. So therefore, like, there was no chaotic evil elements. I was the only, to my knowledge, I did not play with anyone ever who was also lawful evil. Everyone was either neutral or good. There was no lawful evils. I did not meet any. I don't recall meeting anyone else's character who was a member of the Zentarum. So like I was the only shifty person there in terms of the parties. But yeah, uh, it's just oh, I got home, sat down with my brother, and we just watched Dragon Prince as we ate dinner. It was around 11. We had to have dinner pretty late, so we're just sitting there with pizza and chips, and I'm just like, oh boy, what a day, what a session. However, I did because of the massive delays we got throughout this adventure, due to certain players. I decided to ask the other DMs, hey, I know you guys repeat adventures every week. So you do the same adventure for 2 weeks and then you move on to another to the adventure. And so I asked them, is it okay if I take this group next week as well and basically continue where I left off? Because I feel bad that they may not get a chance to like they have to start over and they may not finish the adventure, you know. Um, so the DMs were like, yeah, yeah, sure. So I go back to my table. I tell the players what's going on, and yeah, they're like a lot of them were like, yeah, like they were all like very excited at the prospect, and I'm glad. Like, and they're like, oh, can't wait to continue and all that. Like, but yeah, oof. So I'll be back in next week to get the conclusion of this adventure. In which case, I will then tell you guys, and then afterwards, I will also I'll be moving on to DM one of the adult tables, because I get 3 weeks to not like basically once you DM for the kids one of the kids tables, you then don't DM for them for 3 weeks. You move on to it goes into a rotation. They take turns. So yeah, thank God. Uh, so yeah, folks, that's it. I'm not. I'm sorry about not really uploading any content. There's been a lot of chaos with Louisburg because we're trying to organize your arena, and then also we experimented to have some little bit of fun with this LARP system called Starfall that one of our members brought back with him from America. So there's that, and then in terms of video games, because of the stress of the move and some other things going on in my personal life, I when I play games, I'm just more wanting to sort of more or less chill. So, which is why I haven't been streaming any games. But again, I was just like, I still want to bring you guys Lewis Sport videos. There will be some Lewis Sport content. There will be pictures being uploaded onto my Instagram tomorrow. Because I'm going to Comic Con to represent a bunch of Lewis Sport Ireland members, and we're going to have our own table. We're going to be doing demonstrations. We're going to be having a table to talk to people, like tell them about Lewis Sport Ireland and whatnot. it's gonna be fun. So yeah, so if any of my fans, you know, or anyone who's watching this video who's a fan of my channel, feel free to come on down and ask questions about Ludosport, or come look at the demo, and you'll get to see a better. You'll actually get to see a fight much better angle than what my camera can achieve. But yeah, this is the Celtic Nerd sign out. May the force be with you, and remember, roll for initiative.